Welcome indeed to Night City. Now, are we going to get Cyberpunk 2077 on the Nintendo Switch 2? It is a question more than a few people have asked in idle speculation over the past, several months or more, as more and more details about the Switch 2 and its supposed capabilities and power are leaked, or just right out guesswork based on what we do know of the actual NVIDIA architecture and whatever custom work Nintendo has asked for on top of that is powering the Switch 2. We are, very soon now, going to have a lot more answers to a lot more questions about the Switch 2, but before we get there, I wanted to run a little thought through why I think Cyberpunk 2077 has a decent chance of arriving on the Switch 2, perhaps even as a launch window game. And I'm not just pulling this out of my bum with hopium and copium, there is a little bit of evidence to suggest that it might actually be happening. And obviously all of this sounds a bit wibbly on first blush, but when you dig into the possibilities, it might not be as improbable as you might think. Both considering the capabilities of the Switch 2, or at least what it should have based on what we know, and what CD Projekt Red have been up to lately, and what they've been saying lately to their investors. Hello again, I am Blunty, and let's crack open the chances of Night City, Johnny Silverhand, V, and all their friends coming to party beside Mario and Link and whatnot on Nintendo's next-gen console. So let's start with the big question. Why would CD Projekt Red even consider bringing Cyberpunk to the Switch 2 in the first place? The game is a little over 4 years old now, it's feature complete. They said they were all done with the updates quite some time ago now, but that was also before they had a management shake-up not too far back, and we found out in a surprise announcement that they had hired a third-party studio to actually deliver a new update which included new content. And just last week, in a management board report detailing their activities from 2024, we found out why that happened. Long, boring corporate speak cut short, turns out Cyberpunk 2077, despite its rocky start back in 2020, has sold extremely well and is continuing to sell quite well. In fact, it's selling better in the long tail than even The Witcher 3 did, and is in fact considered a key revenue source for the studio right now. And we already know they're not done spreading this game to new hardware yet. There's an upcoming port we already know about. The game will be arriving this year for Mac devices running native on Apple's silicon. And that gets mentioned alongside the enticing wording of ongoing work on, further development and improvements to existing games, mainly Cyberpunk 2077, including, and that word including is implying not limited to, the Mac port, because you don't use the word including in this context if there isn't other stuff also going on. Now, this might just mean we'll see even more feature patches and ongoing updates in line with the third-party studio-developed patches 2.2 and 2.21 that we've recently received. Or it may be something more expansive, like, for example, a Switch 2 port. And here's a thought off the top of my head. Wouldn't it be interesting if it could use the Switch 2's mouse mode Joy-Cons to play this first-person game the way it feels best? I'm going to come back to some more evidence from CDPR implying that this might actually be happening, but let's talk about what many consider the biggest challenge here. Hardware power. We're used to thinking about the Switch in terms of being a very low-power device that can't really do ports of AAA games very well, with a few big exceptions, of course. But the Switch 2 is going to be a true generational leap. Cyberpunk 2077 is a demanding game, no doubt about that, even for current-gen systems. Even 4 years after launch, many of us content creators are still using it as a benchmark game for performance testing. You see it all the time whenever one of those new PC handhelds come out. Cyberpunk is one of the core games we all test on. But let's have a little context on that. Remember when they did the quote-unquote impossible port and released a shockingly playable port of The Witcher 3 on the current gen Switch? At the time, many thought it was way too ambitious. No way the Switch could do Witcher 3, come on. Yet they made it work, albeit with some compromises, but it was very, very playable and highly praised for the quality of the port. And the Switch 2 almost certainly has enough power for Cyberpunk, especially if it gets the optimization attention that Witcher 3 got. The NVIDIA Ampere-based GPU that we already know the Switch 2 will be using thanks to leaks and, well, we have literal photographs of the Switch 2's main board where we can see the chip. That architecture means the GPU power on hand will very likely be roughly in the ballpark of something like an NVIDIA RTX 3050 or even a 3060 GPU, or maybe 3060 mobile GPU if we're going to be a little bit more settled about it, but with the advantage of a few extra years of development on NVIDIA's machine learning trickery for DLSS upscaling, ray tracing, and frame gen. Because all that stuff is drivers and hardware working in concert. And there is no doubt that the chip Nintendo were using, just like the one they used for the Switch 1, will be a customized form. So you combine that level of power on hand with the lack of Windows overhead and code that can be highly optimized for single target hardware, unlike on PC of course, well, I think there's a damn good chance for it. The recent advancements in upscaling technology like NVIDIA's DLSS could be the absolute key to all of this. The Switch 2, I would bet on supporting some form of DLSS. It's basically a guarantee. Given the architecture generation of the GPU that it's using, DLSS 2.0 would be my best guess. Although if we're very lucky, maybe even DLSS 3.0. And I've personally run Cyberpunk at decent presentation standards at 45 to 60 FPS, which is a really nicely playable place for it, on less powerful hardware and with Windows overhead. So I think an optimized Switch 2 port is very much in the realm of possible. And given CDPR's active push to keep the brand alive and active, I'd even venture that it is likely, not just possible. Why do I think it's likely? Well, let's talk more about that. The sales of Cyberpunk 2077 and the expansion, again, according to CDPR's own management board report just last week, accounted for almost 74% of sales of products of CD Projekt Red in 2024. Let me say that again. 74% of the sales of products coming out of CD Projekt Red was Cyberpunk 2077. And I mean specifically the game, Cyberpunk 2077. Not any of the spin-off stuff or the anime and the merchandise. I'm talking about the game and its expansion accounted for 74% of sales. So I don't see them lifting up the gas on this. I know if I were them, I'd have at least seriously considered riding the wave of the Switch 2. I mean, they're doing a Mac port, and, well, let's think about the numbers here. What do you reckon the number of gamers owning Mac devices are versus the number of gamers who would buy a Switch 2? The market for potential sales of Cyberpunk 2077 is much higher on the Switch 2 than it will be for any existing Mac users. That is a significantly bigger slice of the pie they could be having. And all throughout this document from CD Projekt Red, they've been talking about how they've been expanding their reach with Cyberpunk, which was so successful and continues to sell so well, they even changed their minds about finalizing the game. Like I said in the opening, they said the game was finished. Hey, no more updates. And then, hey, look, update with new features and all. The Switch 2, even conservatively, certainly has enough power for a thoughtfully optimized patch to run very, very playably, especially with the advantages of NVIDIA's architecture and machine learning tricks that the other lower-end console ports that were problematic for this game couldn't have taken advantage of. You could even use it as a feature flagship game. It's a high-profile IP, extremely popular, it's graphically fancy, it's an expansive and dense open world. It was extremely well received, eventually anyway, and a first-person action game that would serve well as a platform to show off the new control options with the Joy-Con's mouse mode. So what if it's literally a launch game for those exact reasons? It would be a very good launch game, being able to show off all of that. It shows off a lot of really impressive stuff about the hardware, including some unique features. It is everything you want in a launch title. Except, I suppose, from being an actual brand new game or a new game in a series. But let's not pretend it will be the first time we've ever seen a port be amongst the launch titles for new consoles. So, end of day. Again, this is all just sky-gazing. Is a Cyberpunk 2077 port for the Switch 2 confirmed? No. No, we haven't even heard any whispers of rumors about it, but then again, patch 2.2 caught everyone by surprise, so it's not like they can't keep a secret. And of course, the lineup of launch games that we're expecting for Switch 2 has been, they kept a tight lid on that. I've seen very few leaks and rumors and whatnot that weren't just, blind speculation. So is it possible? I think absolutely. It is absolutely possible. In fact, I think, again, it is likely. Got better hardware, fancy tricks like upscaling text, and CDPR's good history with Nintendo's ports, with the extremely well-received Witcher 3 port, a brand new launch, a determination to keep pushing the Cyberpunk brand. It's definitely a mix, a recipe, a scenario worth considering. So what do you think? Would you play Cyberpunk on the Switch 2? Would you buy it again for that platform? Or are you one of the gamers who sort of only own Nintendo products for all the lovely, Nintendo exclusives and such, and you never played Cyberpunk 2077 the first time around? Would it be tempting for you on the Switch too, I wonder? Also worth thinking about, if this does happen, how greedy do you think they're going to be? Do you think they'll release a Switch port with the expansion included? Or do you think they'll release the base game and then double dip you for the expansion? It is CDPR. And they have a relatively good reputation for not, horrifically screwing over consumers like some other publishers do. But who knows? I guess we might soon enough. In any case, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this ruminating, please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, do the thing to get all alerts, because YouTube are changing that again soon. That even if you're subscribed, even if you've got the bell rung, maybe even then they won't even tell you that I've got new videos out, because YouTube is a nightmare. So please do me the kindness of doing the interactive stuff and leave comments and whatnot, please. But thank you to the patrons for their ongoing and wonderful support, monetary support. I am Blunty, and I will catch you next time.